Right, the European Commission is all-powerful. I will tell you this, the Parliament has virtually no power. Unlike our Parliament, which is responsible for generating legislation, that every time there is a change of government, the new government will have an agenda and a programme for new legislation. Rightly or wrongly, you may disagree with it, or you may not, but it will have one. This doesn't happen in the European Parliament. The Commission has everything in terms of power. They're unelected. All the people within the Commission are unelected, so we can't kick them out. They're self-selecting and self-regulating. Nobody has the power over them except themselves. No one can remove any member for any reason, even MEPs. The only people that can remove members of the Commission are the Commission itself. To me, that's a bit frightening already. And the whole issue of how legislation gets into the statute book for all of us comes from 3,000 secret committees. Maybe that doesn't surprise some of you, maybe it does. Why are they secret, you might be asking? Well, it's not just secret, but no one, not even an MEP, is allowed to know who's on the committee. No MEP is allowed to tell them who to put on the committee, and no MEP is even allowed to know what they're discussing. This is frightening. There's no accountability within UKIP, appropriately called. Oh, sorry. Okay, so I've covered the MEPs.
Yes or no?
Okay. Now, these unelected officials have protection from demotion. They have protection for dismissal or incompetence. They have protection from misconduct or lying. The only reason that they can get dismissed is one golden rule. You can't criticise the EU. That is the only heinous crime that you can be accountable for within the UKIP environment. There is, and has been rumours for some time, that one of these secret committees has actually formulated a policy that you or I can be accused of a crime for criticising the EU in the future. They are incredibly highly rewarded. I think enough has been published about that. They live in this wonderful world where not only do they have huge salaries, but they have special taxation. They even we have to pay for them to send their families on skiing holidays. Can you believe that? These pampered, protected people rule us with an iron rod. And they are completely unaccountable. Anyone who challenges, and you have read this in the paper, is accused of being a little Englander. So now, to protect the interests of your country, you are labelled a little Englander. Now, some of you may think that's a silly label and it doesn't mean anything. To me, it's not a very pleasant thing to be labelled a little Englander. So let's go on to the Council of Ministers. They're made up of the relevant national ministers appointed by the government and by their national leaders. They meet only occasionally, and they usually only meet to sign agreements that have already been drafted and agreed by UKIP. That's why they only take a few hours to actually meet and go through these things. Sign here, please, and get out. And then you can have the political kudos or otherwise that goes with it. So here we come to the European Parliament, the body that is supposed to protect us all, as our Parliament is supposed to protect us, and that we should have the rights to kick them out. Elected MEPs are reselected every 5 years, but you're not allowed to know who they are. They're just elected by a piece of proportional representation. So you only know once the party has selected their names who they are. So they're faceless people, including the UKIP ones. They're faceless people until they get elected. Isn't that surprising for a so-called democratic environment? And the interesting thing is that they then can't get funding in order to run their offices unless they form a grouping of at least 19 other MEPs across the whole European Parliament. So any new party with a new idea would find it almost impossible to get funding. So they'd be there, but they couldn't actually function. So that is the way that eCommy and eParl actually work. Now, I'm going to take you back to a little test here. I like tests. Which is, do you know, would you like to hazard a guess, who you could see as perhaps the architect of this wonderful thing called the EU? Sorry? Monet. Any other?
Not the artist like that.
No. Any other? A Belgian, a Frenchman? Or somebody from Luxembourg, from Holland? How about Adolf Hitler? Now this is true. In 1941, Adolf Hitler appointed his head of finance, a man called Walter Funk, to evaluate and draw up plans for a single currency for Europe post the Second World War. In 1945, the Allies liberated a complete plan for the formulation of an integrated European Union with a single currency, of course controlled and dominated by Germany. Does this sound familiar? So the whole thing has its roots far further back than we think. More about Germany later. And I'm not going to knock Germany because that's not the case, but I want to draw some parallels with what has gone on in the past. Okay. So let's talk about this thing which the lying politicians have told us is not a constitution, but everybody who knows anything about it, including the person that wrote it, says that it actually is the constitution. It's called the Lisbon Treaty. And many of you here will have been said, you don't have to worry, there's really no change, it's just tidying up again, you know, nothing's going to happen. We've got red lines. I think that was the other lie, I've forgotten about that. We've got 2 red lines that we've defended Britain against. Well, that's all rubbish as well. There weren't any red lines that we could defend. So let's talk about what the Lisbon Treaty actually does. And you might get a little frightened along this. It sets up a whole range of new ministries which are intended to run Europe. Europol, the European Police Force, Eurogenfor, the European Gendarmerie Force, Eurojust, the Federal Prosecution Service, Regionalisation of Europe, Diplomatic Service, European Armed Forces, something that Robert is always interested in. And the interesting thing, and this is coming back to the German thing, has anybody heard about the Enabling Act? Anyone here? Okay. For those that haven't, in 1933, a democratically elected government in Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, found that they couldn't pass the legislation they wanted to within a democracy. And they also found that the opposition, which was mainly a Roman Catholic opposition, found that they were having their churches attacked. So they came up with the idea, which is the Enabling Act, which says if we stop all this attacks on the Catholic opposition and we make sure that you are an effective opposition that will help you, will you give us 4 years that we can actually do what we want? We don't have to come back to Parliament. And believe it or not, that was signed. Of course, within 4 years, Hitler had destroyed that and he never went back for anything else. The European Constitution is actually self-amending and self-ratcheting. They don't have to come back to politicians within all the policy areas and change it. They can do it without reference. Now, some of you may say, yeah, but we read all these things in the paper about they come back and talk. Well, they're a lot cleverer than just bulldozing through. They come back and try and talk people through. But they have so many mechanisms of bribery. If you do that for us, we'll let you have a bit more money over there. We'll give you a development fund over there. We'll do some regionalisation funds over here. Now, if you don't think that doesn't work, we've had Ireland, Portugal and Greece given all this money. Do you think they're going to resist what the European Commission wants in the future? Not a chance. Because they'll take away their goodies. So this is This self-amending and ratcheting is a very, very dangerous step forward. Okay, so let's talk about some of these different things so that you can get a flavour of what they mean. The Euro Police have new frightening powers. These are not powers that they're going to have, they have them now. They can enter your home without a search warrant. So somebody appointed in the Euro Police, who could be a German, they could then pass that power to a local police, can enter your home without a search warrant and search it. We don't have that power in the UK Police. They can extradite you without evidence. Everyone here, I'm sure, has heard about the European arrest warrant. Haul you out and take you away to some Greek filthy jail, throw you in there and hold you there. They can have the option not to tell anybody where you are, including your family. They don't have to do that. Under the powers of the Lisbon Treaty, they don't have to tell anyone. And they can hold you out without charge for a reasonable period of time. That is not defined within the European Lisbon Treaty. So that's Europol. Now, Eurogenfor is an interesting one. I have seen 2 references in the last year. It's a strange thing. It's not generally publicised who they are. But they're modelled on the lines of paramilitary lines after the CRS, which is the French security force. It is meant for the suppression of civil disobedience. Think about that for a second. Civil disobedience. So, in the future, if the Greek population suddenly say, we don't like what you're doing to us, we don't like these taxation powers, and they start rioting, the European gendarmerie force can be put in there to suppress that civilian unrest. And it can be done here too. It is actually led by a Frenchman based here in London. This is a very sinister organisation. Eurojustice is again an autonomous, non-accountable powers for surveillance. They can survey your phones, your emails, your letters. They can supply on our politicians and other civil structures if they disagree with the EU opinion, without reference to our police. Every day, I believe someone could attack and intercept my phone. Every member of UKIP could have the same thing happen to them, because we're a danger to them.